Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Ophelia Does Magic. I am your host, this is my channel. Today we're going to be talking about witchy / spiritual journals, tour of my organizational system, all of the different things that I do to keep my noggin nice and clutter-free so that way I can do the best work that I can do to be my best self, so that way I can get all the clarity of mind and purpose that I need, and so I can keep an accurate archive of everything that I have done, so I can go back and my neurotic little self can go back and reference everything that I need at any given point in the future. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we actually begin, I want to preface this by saying that I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that anyone needs to do this amount of neurotic journaling. It really is just a personal preference thing and a personal, like a personality kind of thing. I just like it. I've always been this kind of person ever since I was in, I think second grade was the first journal that I ever properly kept. And since then I haven't stopped keeping journals, multiple journals for multiple things across all various aspects of my life, career, finance, poetry, what have you. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's just the kind of person I am. And I just wanted to document this mostly for myself, so I know that at this point in my journey, this is what I've been doing. It's a snapshot of what I've decided has worked for me at this point in my life, and to see how it changes and grows and shrinks and streamlines and expands would be interesting. So the first thing that I feel like I have to mention is just going to be my catch-all. I mean, I don't even know what you would call this collection of stuff would be called like my book of shadows, but it's books, and they're not books of shadows because they're all slightly different, so I'll just explain what they are. Okay, so this is a big chunky 2-ring binder. I got this in July. It is now December and it's full at this point, and this has pretty much all of my typed notes, typed journal entries, anything that I needed to do on the computer for any given reason. It goes in here, right? Obviously, because it's easier. Also, sometimes I'll get handouts. For example, if you get readings, or if you get workshop notes, if you do like ebook downloads. I got like my Aura read once. Anytime you get like a leaflet, it's important to archive that. So the first and most significant chunk of that section, this book, is going to just be my daily, reflection. And what I do is I just brain dump. So it can be as broad as just a recap of my magical day. So like my day framed in the perspective of my spirituality. So if I was dealing with something and I wanted to jot down a thought that I had, if I am thinking about a topic. So for instance, if I'm doing a full moon ritual and I wanted to open up my, my heart to certain questions and do some shadow work, that goes in here. If I am practicing like energy manipulation and something comes up, I do that here. So that is like the general reflection bit. I also have some typed tarot readings. I have some very, very specific. Back when I first started doing ritual work, I would write down all of the step-by-step procedures of my ritual: time, moon phase, weather, mood, individual bullet points. I would type it all out because it would be a lot of stuff, and I didn't really know what I wanted to include in my ritual logs. I also have deity work. So when I first started seeing signs of deity and wanting to use archetypal craft energy, whatever, to include archetypes in my practice, I had to do a lot of research. So not only did I do research on the particular archetype, I would also write down my experiences, reflect on those experiences, ask questions. So I have a lot of stuff there, as well as any tarot readings or workshops that I've done. Notes, book reviews, those all go in here. I read a lot of books on witchcraft, and of course, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I'm not really a serial buyer of books. And even if I am a serial buyer of books, usually I take notes on the side. So what I will do is read a book, and as I'm reading or after I'm reading, synthesize all of my notes on the side, so that way I have a nice little practical, personally written guide on what I felt like was important, some of the distilled bits that I felt like weren't necessary to kind of hold on to. And that's particularly essential for books that I'm borrowing from the library, because obviously, for the most part, if it's just a one and done book and I read it and I want to gain something from it and then I let it go, I want to make sure that whatever I gain from it, I retain, and it's not just something that's floating around in my head and then, you can lose that. I don't want to rely on my brain to remember stuff that can be written down, recorded. I also had like a spending log in here at one point, and then I moved on to having that be written in a bullet journal. Oh yeah, before I moved on to this system, I originally had one witchy bullet journal. I went through it in a month, like the whole journal. I went through it in a month, so I know now that that's not going to work, and you're going to see very quickly why it's not going to work, because I have so many different things that I write down on so many different days. I will just say for reference, this has been like a several months endeavor, and it's already looking like this. So, you know, for me, having one notebook is just not going to cut it. Okay, so from, I guess, most significant to least significant, that is the most significant. It just has so much stuff, and I think in a way it is so raw, and most of the writing I do is, especially for journal entries, it's like stream of consciousness writing. It's, you could call it channeled writing, you could call it automatic writing. It is just very unfiltered, pure, raw emotion. I'm not correcting anything that I write. I just sometimes when I actually do automatic writing and I do channeled messages, that stuff is most easily facilitated through typing. I know some people say that the EM gets in the way. Until I have an issue with the EM getting in the way, I'm just more effective when I type on the computer. So it is just easier. Like, I get a lot of, basically, I can't reconcile whatever is there. If it's lost, I won't be able to retrieve it again. You know, these very, very, very precious memories of me writing down my formative experiences with ritual, my formative experiences with meditation, and like anything that I saw and I felt, it was all documented here. And when the memories were really fresh, when all the experiences were brand new, I wanted to write a lot more about it than I do now. So those are really precious to me. And in fact, my computer actually kicked the bucket the other day, and I had to go buy a new one, and I lost access to all those files. And so I'm really glad that my Gemini moon made me print all of those things out, so that way I didn't lose anything, because that would have been absolutely devastating. Okay, the next, I guess, like most significant journal is my tarot journal. Now this I started in November, because I went through my bullet journal, and then I went through a separate tarot journal, and now here we are on the third book. So I bust through these very, very quickly. All of my journals from here on out I picked up from Barnes & Noble, and they do pretty nice full leather journals. They're custom commissioned in by a manufacturer in Italy, so I guess they have like a deal with a group. But basically I have this beautiful filigree, kind of embossed, debossed, I don't know, it's got this beautiful leather cover, it's got this wraparound situation, and I have to thank Boho Berry for being, no, Boho Berry is bullet journaling. I have to thank Boho Tarot for inspiring me to do my tarot journal like this. So before I was just documenting the actual cards that I got. My first ever tarot journal was one that was specifically for tarot readings, and that was really great when I first started, because I was really overwhelmed by tarot. I was just starting out. Then I moved on to my own spreads. Then I designed my own e-booklet, and I printed it out, and that was really, really cute, but I was just writing too much, so I really just needed more space. So if you are someone who doesn't like need that much space, you know, having an e-booklet could be really good, or having like a cute designed booklet could be really good. But now I'm really more concerned about functionality, honestly. And so what Boho Tarot has taught me is that tarot is a visual medium. So why not include, that was a bad page to flip through, but why not include like visual keys to your reflection? So, you know, if you're going to use pictures to read the cards, if you're going to use pictures to remember what's going on, it obviously makes sense to go back and actually see exactly what you were thinking at the time. And the other great part about this is you can actually see the spreads as they are. I often don't do really fancy spreads with the positions or anything. Usually you'll see that my cards are just laid out flat, or they're up and down, or they're not super intense. But this is just about 3 or 4 weeks of tarot journaling in my notebook. So this was a spread that I did recently, and it's just super satisfying. It's super satisfying to have these little cutouts. I have so many decks, and I love, and sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's just a functional journal where I'm writing, but many times I do have quite a lot of stuff going on. And one, it makes the journal visually interesting, which is not, it's not meaningless, right? Having a beautiful product, having a beautiful relationship, having something that you covet that is sacred. I mean, all of these sacred texts from ancient times were incredibly detail-oriented, like the writing and the gilding and the drawings on the pages and the binding and all that. Sacred works of art are sacred because they are spiritual and they're important, but they're also beautiful and they're valuable, right? So at first I thought, you know, oh, you're being so indulgent, making this a beautiful thing. It's supposed to be utilitarian. You're supposed to just have, you know, like my previous journals were very utilitarian, and I would just scribble in the tarot cards, and I would just write the answers, and I would write down what I thought, and I would write down the quotes that resonated with me, and I would just do it in a way that was the most practical, like Ryder Carroll kind of bullet journal style. And I think it's something about the puritanical holdover in Christian America about how spirituality should look. It should look austere. And I was raised in a Buddhist household, and that was similar. So, it should be very humble. It should be very plain. It should be very modest. Nothing should be too indulgent. Nothing should be too much. Nothing should be, too fanciful or too pleasurable to the senses. And I just, currently in my life right now, I'm moving away from that. I just don't find that it, like, for what? I take so much pride and joy in what I do, and when I take the time to make my tarot journal beautiful, when I take the time to understand the cards and the messages and to cut them out and to write about each one in the right colored ink, and to really take some time to make it luxurious, to really luxuriate in the experience, I find that I pay more respect to it. I don't know. I feel like I engage with it in a deeper way. And I don't mean to say that my tarot practice is like incredibly deep or anything, or that it takes a really, really long time. I mean, it is meaningful and it is deep, but it's not laborious by any means. I do a very quick reading in the morning, and I do a more intensive like reflection at night, but it's not like an hour a day. I'm not really spending out an hour a day. I can, but I'm not. That's not what this is. Yeah, usually if I'm going to do like a really long write-up, it's going to be just typed. The length is in ruminating and thinking and in synthesizing some real prose and understanding of the reading. It's not in the cutting and gluing. The cutting and gluing doesn't take as long as you think it would if you have an optimal setup. So that is this journal. It's precious to me. Unfortunately, the glue that I use, the Elmer's glue, is not super strong, right? Because it's for children. And so with time, as the pages bend and flex, some of the glue starts to like dry and peel up. So I don't know what the solution is. I know there's like scrapbooking glue tape, but that stuff is just too expensive. I mean, I use a lot of cards. Okay, I tape a lot of cards in here. I use a lot of stuff. And like I mentioned, okay, so here's what I was saying. So that's the bookmark where I'm at now. I started this a month ago, like literally probably 3.5 weeks ago. And that's the amount of writing that I've done already. So these journals, even though they seem really big and it seems excessive that I have so many things, if I don't, I literally won't be able to maintain any order. Like, it's just going to be crazy. Okay, the next journal that I use quite a lot is my tarot study book. So I used to have one tarot journal, and when I say one tarot journal, I would mean it was a tarot journal like with my entries, and then it was a tarot journal with spreads, with information, with anything that I was reading. If I was referencing a text, if I was listening to people on YouTube who were teaching me things, I would write it down in the same place, and I just found it impossible for me to reference. So this is a separate journal just for tarot stuff. Again, from Barnes & Noble. It has a beautiful leather cover. The rose on the front reminds me of the symbol from the Attack on Titan world. I don't know why, but every time I see this journal, it really reminds me of Attack on Titan, and I had to get it. So in here, it's really just plain, dry writing notes. So book reviews, video reviews, spread information if I want to talk about like a spread that I want to try out. So that's a self-improvement spread. This is usually like anything that I need to type up. I prefer to type. I'm not someone who is above typing, so it's not like I am going to like reach into my bin of beautiful leather notebooks and I'm going to reach for my fountain pen and I'm going to do this kind of like very extensive, like, ritualistic, beautiful writing, because it's just not functional to have like a big tarot tome on my lap. If I'm doing and Andy Matzer's book on like tarot for transformation, it's like a huge 400-page book. It's not convenient for me to like grab this out to take notes in it. This is usually for like little things. Like usually I'm scrolling on my phone and I see something from Light Wands on TikTok and I'm like, oh my God, she's got amazing questions. I'll jot that down. Like anything that's on my Instagram saves will go in here. But if it's a really big, like meaty text that I'm going through, it's something really intense, usually that kind of thing is going on Google Drive. It's going on Google Drive. I'm printing it out. It's not going to be, it's not going to be laboriously printed onto here because that doesn't make my life any easier. But I do find it very, very convenient to have this separate. So that way, if I'm not really feeling a tarot reading, or let's say I finished all the tarot readings that I want to do, like not necessarily divinatory, but let's say I did a gratitude reading, I did a card of the day, I did like a check-in, I did a self-care, I did everything that I needed to do for the day, but I'm still in a tarot mood. Oftentimes what I'll do is study, and then I can put that book down and delve into this book, and I think that has really helped. Because, being involved in tarot is not just like reading your cards over and over and over again. It's also ruminating on the tarot, learning about esoterica, kind of understanding the symbolism, reading other stuff, kind of just basking in all of it. It's a lot. It's a full-time job. And so it's nice to have that distinction. The next book that I use a ton, this is one of my manifestation journals. Now, this is a little bit of a loosey-goosey scripting manifestation journal. It's nothing too particular. I mean, I pretty much there's a pretty clear consensus on how you should script and how you should manifest, if it's in writing. You know, it's not, I mean, I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but it's not like there's a ton of disagreement on what you should do, right? Like, you should use the present tense, you should really embody the feelings, you should write as if you already have the things, you know, you should write in terms of gratitude, you should, you know, incorporate goals that are scary to you. So there's certain things that we like know are great for manifesting, but I also use this as like a words of power book. I use this as a way to kind of like figure out what it is that I'm wanting, you know, like sometimes we have to get clear on the goals that we actually want. If we're going to do spell work, if we're going to do self help or self improvement, it is helpful to get clear on what it is, those things that you actually want to achieve. So this notebook is kind of like my little catch-all for all kinds of things for scripting, wanting to like get my life together. Originally, this book was a diary, actually from 2018, and I never got rid of it, you know, because the book is really nice, but I dropped off. So let's see, I started this diary in July of 2018, and I basically quit in August of 2018. So, or 2018, I basically used it for a month, and I quit, and I used probably like 50 pages, and I didn't use the rest of the book. So obviously I didn't throw the book away. And ever since then, I guess because of its history, I never treated the book with too much preciousness. And I actually think that it worked in my favor because, you know, with manifesting, with scripting, with law of attraction, you know, if you are going to use automatic writing or any kind of script to get what you want, you need to have your mind in the right place. You need to be able to focus your intention. You need to be able to channel 110% of your concentration into the words that you are using, into your intentionality, and then you need to just like seal it in there and let it simmer, let it be, and then let it go, right? And I find that with new books, with pristine fountain pens, like if you've got all the gadgets and gizmos and you have everything laid out, and if you are a nerd for certain stationary items like I am, what can happen is your perfectionism for the product of your journal can get in the way of how you feel. And if I'm journaling just about my regular old day, that shit doesn't matter. Like, you know, if I'm more caught up on my handwriting than I am about my day, it doesn't really matter to me. But if we're talking about my spiritual practice and we're talking about getting shit actually done and changed and like actually manipulating the world around me, like manipulating the opportunities around me, getting stuff to happen in consensus reality, I need that. That's like some serious heavy lifting that my brain has to do. And so being able to let go of perfectionism, being able to let go of the way that my journal looks is actually a really big fucking deal for me, because I'm not the kind of person who can just like scribble stuff down by candlelight without really thinking. Before this, I wasn't that kind of person, and now I am. Just last night, I had, you know, the witch's insomnia, okay, and I just got to work by candlelight. I, you know, did the whole shebang. I started a ritual, and I had a beautiful time, basically scripting. I mean, I wasn't intending to do it. I wasn't really like, I'm going to like sit down and have a session where I write down all my hopes and desires and I'm going to do it in this way. But I did. And I did it. I did it in the way that I think you're supposed to do it. But what you're supposed to do is to allow the power to come through. You're not supposed to like focus on your L's and your Q's and making sure all your letters are slanted the right way, which is, you know, when you're someone who likes handwriting, sometimes that can be what is at the forefront of your mind. And what's really interesting is before I actually even learned about scripting, before I even learned about law of attraction and words of power, I just like wrote down what I wanted. Like, it was just kind of a list of, you know, if I went back in this journal in a year, what would be like the stuff that I asked for? And I think that's what I started writing down originally, and it just started progressing, and now this is the journal for all my scripting stuff. This is also the journal I use for petitions. So you'll see that there's a certain section, there's a little sliver here where the signatures are a little busted. And that's because anytime I do petitions or sigils or any kind of working where I might need paper, so if you're doing a thing where you like write your intentions down or your burdens and then you burn them or whatever, for some reason, I guess, starting from day one, I just decided that I was going to use paper only from this book. And now it is a bit of a tradition that if I need to use something and I need to remove it from, like, I'm not going to use a random piece of paper. I'm going to use a piece of paper that is imbued with my energy, and that is coming from this kind of notebook. And it's also one of those lovely Barnes & Noble notebooks that I got from 2018. that has one of these like wraparound edges, and it's made of leather, and it's nice and it's durable. It's very, very durable. This thing has moved with me multiple houses over multiple years, and it has been fantastic the whole time. So that's my scripting book. Okay, I have yet another scripting book. This one is a very prescriptive one though. So when I say prescriptive, I mean it follows a rule. This follows the Keiko Power Wish new moon, full moon ritual catalog situation. How do you say this? This is not this book, the one that I just showed you, was a little bit of a willy-nilly manifestation book, which I don't mean to say in a bad way, but it is kind of like, I just follow my own inner guidance, I listen to my own voice, I use my own guides, I just like write what comes to me in the moment. This book with the moon and the sun here, this one is very prescriptive, following Japan's leading astrologer, Keiko. She created this book called The Power Wish, or she created this method called The Power Wish, and she wrote a book that sold like 1 million or 1 billion copies or whatever, and then she translated it into English and it released this year. And the book has been haunting my dreams for like half a year. And ever since I picked up my first tarot deck in March of 2021, I have wanted to like get that book. And it wasn't until recently, I want to say in September, that I finally got it. And I've started to implement the practices, and boy oh boy do they work. So yeah, really interesting. She recommends a certain way to script stuff, like a certain way to petition the universe for things to come into your life. And yeah, I mean, she doesn't say like you need to get a separate notebook, but I think the deep mind is very aware of symbolism and of tools and of the way that you associate things, right? And I think each association has its own merit and its own use. For instance, I like the fact that this notebook is so free flow and it's just my own gut telling me what to write, and there's no rules, and it's just whatever feels good in the moment. This book feels so imbued with organic, raw, like me energy. You know, it's just me figuring out my own thing. It may not be the most efficient. It may not be like the best, prettiest, most accurate. I don't use all of the correspondences. I just like do what's from my heart. And that feels good for this context. And this feels good for its context, which is a lot more prescriptive, a lot more formal, a lot more polished. The language is very specific. The timing and the requests are very specific. And I think in some instances, it feels great to follow those kinds of guidelines, because it feels like I have those supports helping me, guiding me, focusing my desires upon that specific path. So that is the Power Wish journal, and it's different from the regular scripting journal. Yada, yada, yada. Last but not least, here is my, I guess you could call this one, if there were to be one, the Book of Shadows. So this is in a traveler's notebook style notebook. Again, it's leather, handmade in Italy. It's got this like elasticated strap, but there's no notebooks in here. It's just like one regular notebook with signatures. This is probably the closest thing to a regular Book of Shadows that I have. I don't keep regular reflections in here. I keep my ritual log, I keep my spell log, and updates as I'm doing the spell, especially if it's like a multi-day spell, which I think most are multi-day spells. I will do like updates, meditation insights, guided meditation insights, spirit guide meditation, or whatever, like any kind of stuff, any kind of activity or things that are related more to, I don't know, like tangible results. You know, it's not just the internal stuff. I mean, it's internal, but it's in relation to something that I did in real life. I also keep a spending log in here. Part of the spending log is also online. Part of it is not. Depthier information, if something like comes in, you know, randomly, if I can download, it will go in here. It's kind of like a bullet journal, you know. It's like a very unglamorous version of a bullet journal, because a bullet journal includes like dates and assignments and like things you're gonna do, and like this certainly doesn't include any of that. I tried to in my previous bullet journal, but it was just like, the planning is so high-paced and so quick, you know, like there's a new moon every two, you know, like there's something going on with the moon like every 2 weeks, you know, or 1 week if you really want to, you know, like be on a weekly schedule. And then you've got like the Sabbats every, you know, 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. Then you've got like your own personal stuff going on. Then if you're going to go by the monthly calendar, it's just like so much. If you're going to include planning into the bullet journal system, it's just a lot, you know. And I have multiple jobs. I have like a full-time job, and then I have like 2 side jobs, and now I have this, and I'm also a wife and like a friend, and I've got stuff going on in my life. I cannot be bullet journaling the witch stuff and doing all the planning. So it really is a stripped back version of whatever I need to get down. It's going down in here. And it's kind of the catch-all for the rest of it. You know, if it's not related to tarot, and it's not related to manifesting, and it's not related to like learning about other stuff, it's going in that book. And that is it. That is my, and I'm saying that is it as if that wasn't much. But that is my practice. That is the way that I get all my thoughts down, the way that I get organized. I feel like organization is such a key part of witchcraft. Surprisingly, when I went into this, I thought we were all going to be like kumbaya, lighting candles. It was going to be some like new age bullshit where we just like hold crystals and chant and do nothing in your mind, and that's it. And that was a very shallow, I guess it's the understanding of witchcraft or the understanding of new age spirituality that is pushed by Goop, like a Goop magazine or like Allure magazine. Like, it's just a very shallow level, consumeristic level, this marketing based view on spirituality. And it really pisses me off that that's what people are seeing, when in reality there's so much richness and so much meditation. And I don't mean meditation like you're closing your eyes and you're going, oh man, you're meditating. I mean like meditation as in contemplation in the mind of big, like difficult topics of, wrestling with life facts and certain things that you're coming into contact with. Like there's just so much inner work that goes on. There's so much intellectualism, and there's so much contemplation, and there's so much analyzation, and there's so much, like heavy mental lifting. Like we do a lot of heavy lifting with our brains when we delve into a serious spiritual practice, and we really need to get to the heart of certain issues. And I feel like no one ever acknowledges how much fucking thinking and writing and work that we do, right? It's all like new age, crystal, chanting, putting down some tarot cards, like oracle cards, you're the best, wearing rings, and it's just, I just didn't think it was going to be so deep. And so now that I have this, I feel much more empowered to tackle all the different areas of my life. Like if I am really overwhelmed by something that is completely unrelated to witchcraft, like if someone says something to me that like really pisses me off, or it strikes a nerve, or it does something and it really derails me, I know immediately I have several options, right? I can try to like do a working. I could do a working to, remove something from me. I could do something to banish something from my life. I could meditate and kind of see exactly what it is that's bothering me. I could go to my tarot cards and I could see, if there's shadow work that needs to be done, if I want to handle it in consensus reality and I want to see some divination for how I could handle that. If I wanted to, study something else, if I wanted to study, Zen Buddhism to see what the philosophies are, if I wanted to go into Stoicism to see like how can I incorporate that into my practice, into my philosophy, I have different ways to process all of those different things. And now I have a very clear path in terms of how to handle it, how to archive it, how I can now look back and see exactly what it was that I was doing and looking at, and what the actual things were at each step of my journey. And I'm still at the very, very beginning of my journey, but it is incredible to see just how much I've changed already. I've changed so much. I have in every notebook that I start a list of questions that are on my mind as I start that notebook, especially about that particular topic. So in my tarot notebook, it might be a question about like, how am I choosing to read reversals? Like, how have I decided what the right way to read reversals is, right? And it's interesting because when you write that question, you generally don't know the answer, right? It's just something that you're confused by. Or one of my questions might be like, what does astrology say about mental illness and the propensity or the role of mental illness in people's lives? And I don't know the answer to that. That's a question I have right now about astrology. And one day maybe I will have an answer to it. And it's really interesting to now be able to see in such clear archives what is what at what point in my life. What was I asking at what point in my journey? And now how do I feel about it? So I'm so happy that I have this journaling practice. I could spend anywhere from like 15 minutes to 3 hours a day, just writing about myself, because I guess I'm egotistical, about myself, my relationship to reality, my understanding of certain things that I'm learning, different creators that I have been watching and absorbing, and books that I've been reading. Book reviews go in here. If I don't have access to a computer, I can just type up some notes on either on a document or write them in a notebook, or I actually like write a full-fledged book review with notes and stuff like that. But there's so much information out there. And so this is just my way of recording and organizing everything. Of course, this is not the right way or the only way. It's just it just is mine, and I love it. It's great for me. It functions really well. It does what I need it to do. It helps me organize my thoughts. It helps me feel good and productive, and like whatever I'm doing is helping, get the ball rolling in a certain direction. And of course, most of all, it's a beautiful record of where I've been and how I'm going. So hopefully this was fun, exciting, inspiring. I don't know. If nothing else, I hope that future me can look back on this and say, wow, I remember when you used to have like 5 different journals, you try to keep up with all of them, or maybe in the future I will have this, that, and the other, lined up, and I'll have like an entire bookshelf filled with beautiful journals and all the things that I was thinking. But that is it, guys. I think I have literally nothing else to say. Thank you so much again for watching. This has just been such an incredible thing to be able to do, to be able to get up here and to speak frankly and honestly about my experience and all the things that I've been doing and learning and trying to implement in my daily practice to be a better witch and a better person. Thank you. I love you, and blessed be.